I've watched a lot of Scott Hamilton lately. And I don't know if I want to start with sports or life, but I do want to cover it all. And I think...
Wow, how much time do we have?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of complex.
But part of the reason that I wanted to have you here today on Retire Sooner podcast is that we've had a rough, it's been a adversity-filled couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
For a lot of people.
Yeah. And I've, it's funny because people just sort of like, they just went into identity stuff, right? They went into I'm this or I'm that, and everybody through social media and everything else has to identify as this or that. And then they all kind of hunker in their corners, and then friendships are lost, and like lifelong friendships. I'm looking at this going, what happened? So many people that I really loved just sort of went away. And it was really funny that a friend I've known for 38 years, we haven't spoken since around COVID, the beginning of COVID. And it was like, I miss this guy's one of my favorite friends ever. And I was in Detroit with my son for a hockey tournament, and my phone rang, and it was him. And it was like, man, we haven't talked in so long, and I've missed you. And what are you doing? And I go, well, I'm in Detroit with Max doing a hockey tournament. And he goes, I'm in Monroe doing a show tonight.
What kind of show?
He's a comedian. So we went to a show, Max and I, and we totally reconnected. And it was like it's all this political stuff and all this other stuff.
So
and
it was COVID and then politics.
And it's all this stuff that COVID does, right?
Yeah.
COVID said, if you're this or you're that, or you got to do this, you got to do that. And it was very divisive. More than it was like, things like that you would think would bring a community together to say, how can we help each other and how can we support each other? That one felt really different because it became so political. But, I think we're past the worst of it now, and we can get back to life.
I think that what people know about you, if you're just tuning in to this episode, is the tip of the iceberg. It's like, oh, I know Scott Hamilton from the Olympics, and he won a gold medal, and he's been a commentator on so many Olympics for figure skating, and maybe I heard he went through some tough stuff. But that is just like the tip of the iceberg when it comes to your life and all of the things that you've overcome. And I wanted to find someone with a message to speak to our audience, because I think we're in a period of time where we've gone through 2.5, 3 years of a pandemic. And then we've gone through the last 2 years of stock market hasn't been great. The bond market has been really bad. Politics is in shambles in the United States.
Yeah, and I think, we're going to talk about religion and politics today, so we're going to be
But people feel as though two wars. We're in the middle of two wars still. Middle East, Ukraine, Russia. So it's kind of it feels like a fragile time. And I wanted to remind people and show people someone that has been through just great adversity and is still shining on the other side. Yeah. I know you opted for no makeup today.
Yeah, so I opted for no makeup today. Well,
I'll be shining with sweat.
My health issues are a prop.
Well,
I'm just kidding.
But start with that though, because you started. You were born into health issues.
Yeah, it was really wild because I was always little. I was adopted at 6 weeks of age. I was an unintended, unwanted baby, but chosen by two school teachers from Northwestern Ohio, originally from the Boston area. And my dad was a PhD professor of biology. My mom was teaching second grade, but spent our whole family's in education. So I get adopted into this family and
in Ohio.
In Ohio. Bowling Green, Ohio, Isaac Azumba. It's the weirdest fight song in the all of.
For Bowling Green.
Yeah. Yeah. Isaac Azumba, Zumbas. Anyway, so I, at age 4, they realized that I was always tiny, but I was really not growing and I wasn't developing properly. And so for the next 4 years, between Bowling Green and Toledo and Ann Arbor and Boston, I was in hospitals trying to get to the source of my issue. They took me off flour, sugar, dairy, all this stuff, just try to figure out if I had food allergies or whatever. And I finally, after, all these misdiagnoses or lack of diagnosis or whatever these things, I ended up in Boston. I had every symptom of a disease called Shwachman-Diamond syndrome, which is a celiac disease that prevents kids from growing and developing.
Shwachman-Diamond.
Yeah. So Dr. Shwachman himself was looking after me. So I figured, finally, we have a solution to my issues and we'll have a way forward. And he said, I've exhausted every test. He doesn't have it. He has every symptom, but he doesn't have the disease. So he sent us home with instructions that we need to just live a normal life and just see what happens. Maybe I'll grow out of this thing, maybe whatever.
But
and
not
then,
a lot of hope either.
No, there wasn't any, like, there was no real path forward. It was just like, go home and see what happens. That was kind of like his medical advice. So after 4 years of being in and out of hospitals, to leave without any sort of, identity to whatever this has been, it just was sort of like exhausting and shattering for my parents. And so our family physician, who lived down like 3 doors down the street from us, he came and he had a one-man intervention to my parents. And he just said, you need a morning to recharge your batteries. This has been physically, emotionally, spiritually, like exhausting for you guys. Financially, it's been a disaster, and you need to shore yourselves up.
And you had a feeding tube.
Yeah, that was that was toward the end. That was because I had they put me on a supplement because they felt like that was the only thing keeping me alive, and so it was absolutely terrible. And I wouldn't drink anymore, and I would tell my mom I'm going into the bathroom to drink this because in case I gag, and I would just dump it out in the sink or the toilet. And then they go, you need to drink this. And it's like, no, I'm not.
So like making you drink this spinach chalk flavored.
No, it was chalk. It was chalk. Not even like chocolate or vanilla chalk. It was just chalk. So our family physician came and goes, I think I have a compromise because you need this supplement. And you're not going to drink it. I know you're not going to drink it. So they put a tube up my nose, down my esophagus, and they would feed it to me that way. So on the day of the intervention, he said, you need a morning off, and here's how you're going to do it. Brand new facility at Bowling Green State University. It's an ice arena where they teach children how to skate from 8 to noon every Saturday. So that's what he should do. And so, is it safe? Yeah. Lots of kids? Yeah. So perfect. So I walk into this Learn to Skate with about 120 well kids, and it's like, whoa, this is awesome. And after several weeks, I realized I could skate as well as the well kids. And then several weeks more, I realized I could skate as well as the best athletes in my grade. And for the very first time in my life, I had self-esteem because I was always the shortest one, the weakest one, the last one chosen, all those kind of cliches. But that was kind of how I lived. And now all of a sudden it was like, I can do something as well as the best athletes in my grade. Okay, I'm a rink rat. That's all I'm going to do from now on.
And this has started around age 8 or 9?
Yeah, it was around 9. Yeah, at 9. So I was late to the game, but my build and my physicality and my personality were absolutely perfect for skating.
And then skating then gave you an identity and gave you some health, didn't it?
Yeah, all of a sudden it happened pretty quick. And I really don't know why or how, but all of a sudden I started to grow and I started to develop muscle and I started developing. And my parents are like, okay, we found something that works. You're a skater.
Keep skating, yeah.
And so I went through a lot of the bullying, of being a figure skater in a small town, and all the other boys were playing hockey. And so I told my mom, I'm going to play hockey. She goes, you're a figure skater. I go, no, I'm going to figure skate. But I want to play hockey. And she said, well, no, you're too small. And I go, I can skate better than all of them.
That's true. You could.
Let me play hockey. So I ended up playing for, I could say 3 seasons. So
you did play ice hockey.
Yeah. Or 2 neck braces, whatever, whatever direction you want to go. And it was there that I realized, I'm 12 years old. I'm never going to be a hockey player. It's really
too
much.
Just too small.
Too small. And I was just getting wrecked because they allowed checking like from day one. You got into this thing. So I just went all into figure skating. And at that time, most of my hockey player friends, I earned their respect.
Because you can skate. They knew, like, hey, this dude can skate.
But it was even better than that. They realized that I had more access to girls than they ever would. And so all of a sudden it was like, hey, buddy. And it was like, oh, okay, here we go. So the skating thing, I was good regionally. I was okay sectionally. Because each, the nation is chopped into 9 different regions, right?
For figure skating.
And 3 regions feed a section. And then the 3 sections feed the nationals, right? So it goes 9, 3, 1, right? Okay. So I didn't make it to nationals my first year in novice because that's the entry level event for figure skating for to make it to the nationals, you have to be on the novice level. And so I was third in the figures and third in the freestyle.
Third. Okay. What age are we talking here?
We're talking
12?
Yeah, I was 12. So you'd think if I was third in the freestyle and third in the figures that I'd be third overall. Well, I was fourth.
Okay. So you didn't make it.
I didn't make it. So we made a change. I went to Illinois to train with.
So by the way, so you weren't like a prodigy right out of the gate.
No, I was good, and I loved the comedians. I always thought if I could be an ice show comedian someday, that'd be the greatest gig in the world. I could have a blast and make people laugh and do all those things. And all my heroes were the ice show comedians. It was like Freddie Trankler from the Ice Capades and Terry Head and.
So you really liked the
Kevin
like you
Bubb,
loved the Ice Capades
Colin
early
Beatty.
on. Yeah.
I liked all the ice show comedians. I thought they ruled the world. And so I thought I want to be an ice show comedian.
Yeah.
And what was really fun was as I got into my skating, I realized that being funny was kind of a superpower. Mm-hmm. If you could make people laugh or you could do things within your competitive programs, then you're introducing an element that's kind of missing because it's very formal.
Very serious. Yeah.
Very formal, very structured. And then, to kind of cut it up a little bit in the middle is, that'd be a lot of fun. So we did that, especially toward the end. I did that in every one of my programs. But going through, like my first year at Nationals, it was Janet Lynn, who was the most popular woman athlete in the world at that time. She was competing in her last U.S. Nationals. So they put the Novice Boys event as the event right before that event. So the most popular woman athlete in the world in her last Nationals, standing room only in an arena in Minneapolis.
How many people?
17,500.
That's a lot.
Yeah, and I had to step in front of 17,500 people. And I ended up falling 5 times in my little 3-minute program.
Oh, geez.
And I came in dead last, So I went back. I was 9th out of 9. Next year I went back, figuring I'm going to show them what I'm made of. I was 9th out of 10. And then we figured I'll go up to junior. So I went up to the junior level, figuring what's the worst thing that can happen. I'm last place guy.
Again. So this is like age 14.
Yeah, I'm going up. It's like 13, 14. Now I'm 15. I guess I was 16 going into my first year in junior. And
so you're still progressing, but you're not like
I'm last place guy.
they're not like, this guy's going to the Olympics.
No.
Yeah.
My mom thought I was going to the Olympics, but I was
you
like,
thought you were going to ice show comedy.
Yeah, I was just competing because it was a means to an end, and it kept me in skating because that was the only thing you could do back then, except for the ice shows, like the club ice shows and things like that. So I did what I was told, nothing more. And that's significant because I would do as I was told and nothing more, which means that I wasn't getting the most out of each training session. So I was definitely participating in me being last place guy because there were other guys that were working harder, that had better work ethic, who had, sort of this driving ambition to win. For me, it was as much a social activity as it was.
So you were kind of just having fun.
I was having fun and I would show up, but I wasn't showing up with this intention of like rocking it, right? Yeah. So I go into the junior level and I go to nationals and my mom said I had to make it to nationals that year because they were in Oakland, California, and she wanted to go to
Cali.
She wanted to go to San Francisco and ride the cable cars and do all that. It was a family vacation. So especially with where I was competitively, like I wasn't going there it was a family vacation. Yeah. So I ended up coming in 7th. So the 2 guys that I beat were mortified, I'm sure. Like, Hamilton beat you? Really? Ooh, that's rough. Dude, you must be so embarrassed. That's going to light a fire under your tail. If he can beat you, you got to get better. So it was right after that my mom said family meeting. And it was like, okay, family meeting. We never had a family meeting before. And in that, she was very cheerful, very upbeat. She said, I've just come from the doctor and I've been diagnosed with a disease called cancer. And we're going to have to make a few changes around here. And then I was the next year, I'd be a senior in high school. And she just said, and you? And I go, yes, ma'am. And she said, we're basically bankrupt. We put everything into your skating. We've got really not much left. But we're going to get you through your last competitive season this year. And then next year you'll go to college because we're both professors now.
So they made an okay living, but it was expensive. A,
Yeah.
all those medical years with you. B, traveling.
It just drained them. It just really drained them. So I went back to Illinois to train for my season, and my main coach had retired. So a new coach came in, and he was pretty structured. Mm-hmm. That's a nice way of saying he was.
So he was a hard ass.
He was a totalitarian dictator.
Okay.
So I had to succumb or suffer. So I just did whatever he told me to do, and I worked a little harder, and I showed up a little bit better, and I had more intention. And I went to the Nationals that year, and it was going to be my last competition ever. And about 2 weeks before, I'd landed my first triple. And so my coach said, "What do we got to lose? We'll just put it in the program." Okay, we'll put it in the program. And so my mom arrived. It was in Colorado Springs. And she had her left breast removed and most of the inside of her left arm to the cancer. And then she was wearing a wig because she lost all of her hair to chemo, but she had the biggest smile on her face. And I was like, "Are you okay?" And she goes, "I'm actually great." And I thought maybe it was the drugs they put her on or something. I had no idea. So she was wearing a sling so people wouldn't bump into her. And she was still, I could tell she was pretty uncomfortable. And I went out to do my long program, and I was in a better position than I'd been in the past because I'd actually worked harder because the coach scared me to death. And I was going out for warm-up, and he grabbed the back of my pants, and he pulled me off the ice. And I was like, "Yes, sir." And he said, "Don't warm up your triple sow cow." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Because we don't really want to know if it's there or not."
So for our audience, what is a triple sow cow?
So you go backwards. You're gliding on your left foot. Just put weight on the inside of your foot. That's your inside edge. So you're going backwards on your left inside edge, and then you're rotating counterclockwise 3 revolutions and landing backwards on your right foot.
Okay.
So
sounds easy.
It's it's not easy. But so
By the way, were people doing triples back then?
Yeah, there were a lot of really good talented skaters, talented skaters that year, especially because
as a spectator, you hear the triple axle, the triple. Is there a triple something?
Triple Lindy was in a Rodney Dangerfield movie, so that was not it. So that would be.
Is that a diving move?
No, yeah, it was a diving move in Back to School. That was the Triple Lindy. So
and then there's the triple.
Jumps there's 6 takeoffs, right? They're the same in the air and the landing. It's the takeoff that makes them different, right? So there's 3 edge jumps and 3 toe jumps, right?
Which are?
The axle, sow cow, and loop are the 3 edge
triple
jumps.
Loop. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't remember. Okay.
And then the toe jumps, which are the vaulting jumps, are the toe loop, flip, and Lutz.
Okay. Oh, the Lutz.
Yeah.
Isn't there a triple? There's a triple Lutz. What is the Lutz?
The Lutz is
Not the Lindy.
The Lutz is you're going backwards on your left outside edge. And then you have to reach back, you put your toe in the ice, and then you have to rotate counterclockwise. Like, so you're going against that forward arm. You're going against it to rotate 3 times around and then land backwards on your right foot. Yeah.
And when did you start being able, well, anyway, so you're able to at least attempt these in competition.
So I didn't warm up the triple sow. I went out to do my long program for that competition.
And your mom is there.
My mom's in the corner. And I landed my first jump, which was normal. And then usually the most difficult jump in my program, like my view at the end of that jump was of the ceiling because I was usually laying flat on my back.
Yeah.
And so this time I just decided I'll throw a triple sow because what have I got to lose?
What do I got to lose? Yeah.
And so that's kind of the way you do things, with an open hand instead of a clenched fist. And I landed it. And I got so excited I forgot to mess up the rest of my program.
So you nailed that program.
And I won junior nationals. So now I had 8 embarrassed guys instead of just 2 from the year before.
It's like, where did this guy come from?
Where did this guy come from? But what I didn't know is that my mom on the way to the competition had met a couple in Chicago who heard about me and had wealth, no children, and decided they wanted to sponsor me.
Whoa.
So she already knew that it wasn't my last competition, but I didn't. And she didn't really want to mess me up with any of that information. So the only string attached was I had to move to Denver. Instead of training in Illinois, I'd be training in Denver. And I'd be taking from a guy who that year was coaching a girl named Dorothy Hamill to an Olympic gold medal. So basically I won the lottery. And so the next year I went up to the senior level because that's what you do when you're a junior champion, right?
And those kids are 18 and up?
Yeah. It's not an age thing. It's a test thing. You have to test to get into that level. And so I went up into seniors and I was sponsored, had my very first apartment, and I turned 18 years old. It's called the Trifecta.
Yeah.
I was such a loser. I had all this stuff going for me, and I was too immature and I was too stupid to take advantage of it. So I went to the Nationals. My mom was there, and I fell on my first jump so hard that my leg sort of went into like a sciatica thing. My right leg, my landing leg was kind of like weakened and sort of numb. And so I crawled through the rest of the program, and I went back to my 9th place.
Oh, back thing. To...
And several months after that competition, I'm back home because my mom had taken a turn for the worse. And
was there any thought of going to school at that point, or were you you knew you were skating?
Well,
at that
was
point?
Like at that point, I'd graduated high school. I went into the senior level. And it was sort of an all-in type of thing because I was in a training center where all the other skaters were sort of all in. Some were doing some classes.
Is this a new coach, or is this the same hard-ass coach?
No, this is the coach that coached Dorothy Hamill to a gold medal. So, I went first year. It was like loser, and then months later I go back home, and my mom had taken a turn for the worse, and I was in her room till about 3:30 in the morning, and I was sleeping on the couch in my dad's home. I was sleeping on the couch in the family room because we had a lot of people there to support us. And my brother-in-law woke me up that next morning, and he said, "Your mother is gone." And she was, for me, she was everything. She was like the person in the world I loved the most, and we had such a great relationship, and I just adored her. And now she was gone, and I just had to figure out how am I going to do life without her. And it was in that I decided I didn't have to, that I could take her with me wherever I went, and I could have her hold me accountable. So instead of being loser man, I went to the rink every day with a passion and a
with her.
Like I'm going to be late. Nope. Honor her. Be on time. So I honored her. I don't feel like doing a long program run through today. It's summer. I'm in altitude. Who cares about summer long programs? Do the full run through. Honor her. So I did the full run through, and so in that, I was in the best shape of my life. And from that 9th place horrific finish that she saw as the last time she ever saw me skate in competition, the next year I'm on the podium at Senior Nationals. And 2 years later, I'm on the Olympic team in Lake Placid. And then I'd switched coaches. My coach in Denver had lost interest in me a little bit. And so another coach who wasn't nearly as qualified or as high ranking as that coach said, "I'll coach you up. You'll be fine."
By the way, you're at this point a few years away, several years away from winning a gold medal. Why did that coach lose interest?
I think it's because there was he wanted to go to another facility. He wanted to leave the rink where he was and go.
He didn't like gold medals?
Well, no, he wanted to go to a place that had all the political power and was close to U.S. figure skating headquarters and had all the toys. Where he was really just trying to make it work. He really wanted to get back to another place. And I wasn't really, after the year I made it to Worlds and I was on the podium that first year after I lost my mom, the next year I tore my ankle up really bad and it was playing catch up the whole season.
So he didn't think, oh, this is like an Olympic potential.
And he still saw me as kind of like that guy that came in 9th, the 2 years before. And so I met with him. I said, "If you want me to stay, I'll stay. But if you don't, I can go take from Don Laws." And he goes, "I like Don. Don's a friend of mine. If you went to take from him, I wouldn't be upset."
Okay.
And I go, he never said stay.
So no. Yeah, he'd be great.
Yeah,
for
so
you.
I went to Philadelphia.
Don would be great.
Yeah, I went to Philadelphia and made it to the Olympics that year. And then starting in October.
That was Placid, right?
That was Lake Placid. That was so much fun.
You were how old? 21?
21, yeah. And so
you're just a kid still.
Still, yeah. Totally oblivious, to how am I going to do this on my own? Don't worry about that right now. You're sponsored and you're a skater.
By the way, back then, are you just making like a little tiny bit of money to survive? Like you didn't have Wheaties at that point.
No, I was delivering pizzas and we'd get a little bit of a stipend for doing these big tours, So I would have enough money to kind of get me through the year with gas money.
You're delivering pizza and on the Olympic team.
Yeah. Well, actually, I got fired from my pizza delivery job because I had.
What pizza place was it?
It was in. It wasn't a chain. It was a
local pizza
place in. Yeah, I loved it too, man. It was the best pizza. They had the best cheesesteaks I've ever eaten in Philadelphia. It was awesome, and I would deliver. And then I had to go. I was an alternate for a competition in Japan, and I had to go because I got called up like the week before. And I told my boss, I go, look, I have to go to Japan. And he's like, he didn't believe me. It's like, how many people at work for him? I'm going, oh, by the way, I can't work next weekend because I'm going to Japan. He's like, you're a terrible person. You're fired. Get out of my sight. I never want to see you again. It's like, Andy, I'm sorry. I have to go to Japan. And he's like, I don't believe you. Get out of here.
Yeah, sure.
And then all of a sudden, I make it onto the Olympic team. I'm getting all this media in Philadelphia, and I get a call from Andy saying, you can have your job back whenever you want it. And I was like, oh, that's a perk of winning is like you get your job back delivering pizzas. So I'd have a little bit of money, and I'd figure out ways. Like the family I lived with in Philadelphia, they would pay me $3 an hour to do chores around the yard and things like that. So I would do chores for them. And so it was a little bit, I got my fast food money or whatever, but I was well taken care of. And so starting in October, well, and here's the crazy part. So my former coach, Carlo, who was at that rink in Denver, he got his job that he wanted in Colorado Springs. Okay. So his rink became vacant. So my new coach, Don Laws, he took over the old rink in Denver.
So you got to go back to Denver.
And that's never burn a bridge because you could end up right back where you were before. So I went back and I had tons of friends there and I had a really good life.
By the way,
there.
is it training with skating? Is it the altitude? Does that help you too?
It can
a little bit, or not with skating as much.
Well, every Olympics are at altitude because of the skiing. So it's kind of helps you be prepared for the Olympics. But all those world championships are generally at sea level, or below. Like that after the 80 season, 81, starting in October actually of 1980. At Skate Canada in Calgary, from that competition on, and never lost again as an amateur.
So you really, that's when you started to take off. You get to the Olympics in Lake Placid. Now, you did not win there yet.
No, I was fifth.
Okay.
But I thought if I was eighth, that would be really good.
So you felt good about Lake Placid. And then how did you ascend to the best guy in the world?
Well, a lot of it's attrition. So you have the 5 guys. Okay, the 4 guys in front of me, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm fifth. Robin Cousins, the gold medalist, turned professional. Jan Hoffman, the silver medalist, went to medical school. Charlie Tickner, the bronze medalist, turned professional. So all I had to do was wake up, and I'm ranked second in the world.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's a good cup of coffee. And the guy that I needed to beat.
Yeah. Who did you have to beat?
So
this is in 84 in Sarajevo.
This is 81. This is going into that first 4 years. This is going into that next 4 years because they retired right after the World Championships in 1980. So now I'm like second in the world with like 4 years to go for the next Olympics. And it's like, wow, that's like a minefield or like a gauntlet.
Let's not get hurt.
Yeah. So the guy I had to beat, ironically, was, remember when I fell 5 times and came in dead last in novice nationals? He was 12 years old on the senior men's podium because he was a genius of figures.
He was like a prodigy.
And he was brilliant at compulsory figures, of which I hated compulsory figures. So I had to repair my relationship with figures. And so I did that and kind of fell in love with them. And it was really awesome because I started to get good at them. And then we went head to head that year. I won nationals in San Diego. And then we went to the Worlds in Hartford, Connecticut. And he was in first after the short, and I was in third after the short. And I won the long to pull up to first, and he was second. So it was a really good rivalry.
All of a sudden, now you're number 1.
And then the whole next year, undefeated on 82, and then going into 83, the year before the Olympics, things were kind of shaken up a little bit. We had Boitano coming up. We had Orser coming up. You had this guy from Europe named Norbert Schramm who was kind of turning heads. And it was like, ooh, it's game on. I got 2 years to go, and this is going to be tight. And so I won in 83, that whole season. And then going into 84, it was kind of mine to lose. And so he had a great fall season, won nationals. My goal was to win nationals every single aspect of the competition by every judge. And I did that. That's kind of a cool goal to. And then I went to the Olympics, and I didn't skate as well as I'd trained all year, but I was able, because I knew, I did the math, looking at the entire field.
Yeah.
Strategically, I knew if I, the way that they scored the competition, if I was top 3 in figures, short and long, I couldn't lose the gold medal mathematically.
As long as you were top 3 in all of them.
All 3.
But you didn't necessarily have to win any of them.
No.
Okay.
Because I knew that I'd be top 3 in figures, and then and then the really good free skaters were going to be down in figures. And then if I was top 3 in short, that would keep me ahead. And if I was top 3 in long, I'd be ahead of enough where they couldn't catch me in the long program. So I won the figures.
And by the way, the long program is long.
Well, back then it went from 5 minutes in Hartford that first year I won Worlds to 4.5 minutes. And now it's 4.
I've looked up some clips of you, and I guess maybe it was
maybe it was just boring that you thought it was that long.
No, I think it was, what was it in 1980?
80 was 5 minutes.
Okay. And I remember thinking, like, how do you do this for this long?
It's hard.
Doing your triple Lutz and it's like, it's not like it looks like you're sprinting for 5 full minutes.
Yeah.
It's like, God.
It's kind of, you choreograph.
And you're a little out of breath. You're out of breath at the end.
You're toast.
You're done.
You're toast. It's just, ugh.
So how did you do in each one of those? Did you do 1, 2, 3 then?
So I won the figures, which was great because I beat a guy that was beyond fantastic in figures. He's probably the best figures skater probably ever.
And figures is what?
The eights, the compulsory 8. You trace 8s around.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And they're all different shapes and sizes and turns within those 8s. And sometimes they're 3 circles. And you got to, it's really complex. And it's all technique and it's all repetition. And, by the time I got to the loop, so loop is, the circles are about as big as you are tall, right? So they're much smaller circles. Yep. And so you have to do a loop at the top of each circle, right? So it was a 3 circle figure. So you push off, you change edge, you do a loop in the top, and then you push off and you change edge and you do a loop at the bottom, and you do that 3 times. And the way I remember it, because the guy that I was competing against, again, with the great figures guy, I beat him 5-4, 5 judges to 4 on the first figure, which was huge because nobody thought anyone would ever beat him in figures. And then the next figure, I beat him 7-2. So
you crushed the guy.
And then when I got to the loop, it was like the 3 tracings were like 1 line. It was beautiful. I looked at it, I was like, oh, that is like the greatest thing I've ever done. I want to frame it. I want to take it home. I want to take a picture of it. It was so perfect that it was like, I can't believe I just did that. And I beat him 9-0. So going into the short program, I was really adrenalized, and it's the Olympics. You got the rings on the boards.
Yeah.
All the media was telling me if I didn't win, it was a loss.
So much pressure.
It was humiliating. I'm the only lock. You've got to win. You got to win. If you don't win, it's a loss. And so I go into the short. I couldn't feel my legs in the short program practice
because you were nervous.
Because I was scared to death. Because now I had everything to lose. And the short program is, if you miss one element, you're done. Right. Like the
Meaning if you're like supposed to do a double and you don't, your score is terrible.
Your score, there's 7 required elements, and if you miss any of them, it's like you're giving points to the rest of the field.
Yeah.
The cliche is you can't win a competition in the short program, but you can most certainly lose one. Right. So I went out and I was so nervous I couldn't even land a jump, and people were screaming and it was crazy and there were signs everywhere, and I was like, ugh. And if I had to skate first after the warm up, I would have been in trouble. But I found an empty dressing room in the backstage, and I found a mirror, and I remember shouting every expletive you've ever heard in your life. Like to the point where I had no voice left because I was screaming at the top of my lungs to purge all the adrenaline out of my body.
So you're just screaming there like a crazy person.
Like a crazy person.
Mother, yeah.
How can you come this far? And I just got it all out. And I went out to skate my short program. I was kind of, I was a little tired. And I hit the combination like it was butter. And then double axel was gorgeous. And I got so excited that the footwork, I almost kind of clipped the wall coming around, picking up speed for the footwork, got down to the end. I almost clipped the wall on the other side. And then I go into the camel spin, which was my least favorite. It's like where you have one foot down and your legs back behind you. And it's like your body and your leg are kind of parallel to the ice. And I hated that spin, but I got better at it. And I was so like adrenalized that I went into that spin and I hit the toe too soon and went, instead of going 1, 2, you have to do 5 revolutions on each foot. It went 1.5, 2. And I'm like doing everything I can to get this spin around. And then I changed feet and I got the required revolutions in. But my coach,
not as good as you wanted. Yeah.
Not nearly as good as I wanted to. And so Brian Orser, man, he skated great. He was amazing. And he won. We had a broken tie, actually, for the short program. So he won the short. I was second. So now I hadn't lost a long program in almost 4 years. So we're going into the long program. But going back to practice, which was really funny, we're in Sarajevo. I'm on practice, and I look up in the stands, and there's Brian Orser up in the stands. And it's like, okay, watch this. So I do a clean run through of my long program, like perfect.
4 minutes.
4.5 minutes. 4.5 minutes. Clean, like hit every single jump. Like, and I'm bowing to the audience, you know, that's there at practice. And I looked up at him and he went, and I was like, oh, crap. He's going to beat me in the long program. He's going to win the long program. I go, oh, come on. I worked too hard for this. And by the time we got to long, I was, the whole right side of my head was just filled. I had a cold and it was just filled with, and I couldn't hear out of my right ear. And I was just off balance. And I didn't skate. I didn't use that as an excuse. On the night, nobody knew I was sick. I didn't even bring it up during the competition. I just skated. I didn't skate as well as I could, but he won the long. I was second.
So he did win that one. Okay.
Yeah. So, so he pulled all the way up to second and I stayed first. And, so I won, an Olympic gold medal, which to me to this day still doesn't make any sense.
Two skating questions, because then I want to get into some of then you went through some serious struggles after that.
Yeah.
This is just for the guy watching a commercial for the Olympics. I see a gymnast do a triple whatever, and Simone Biles does a triple off the vault and lands it. I see you do a triple Lutz. First of all, that's my first question. The second one, maybe this is easier at first. How the hell do you not fall down, throw up dizzy when you do those million spins?
Your body gets used to it. So your body can adjust to just about anything. And like,
so you don't get dizzy when you do, I mean, you're doing like what, 20 when you're ripping around in a circle?
When you do like a combination spin, especially, you'll do, well, you have to do like, now you have to do, I think, you have to hold each position for, I think, I don't know how many revolutions it is. I'm supposed to know this.
Like 20 seconds?
No, it's just each one is, you got to hold it for at least 2 revolutions, sometimes 3. And then if you want the bonus points, you hold one position for 9 revolutions. So in a spin like that, you could do 25.
20. And again, you get used to it. I always think, how do you not just fall down dizzy?
I always rotate it counterclockwise, jumps and spins. So if I rotate,
why does that help?
Because your body gets used to rotating in a certain direction.
Okay.
So if I were to try to do a spin clockwise,
you would get dizzy.
I would totally get sick. Yeah.
Okay, so that answers that long-standing question that I've had since I was like 5.
Yeah. Your body can get used to anything. It's really amazing. It's really miraculous, actually.
And then when you are doing and I guess this is for ski, anybody that's jumping and flipping. I think about Shaun White and snowboarding. Are you conscious of that, or is it more like you have to get a launch point, you tuck, and all of a sudden you're landing, or do you feel it while you're in the?
So when was the last time you were able to, like, are you a golfer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So golf
not
swing,
great, but yeah, golfer.
It goes like 1,000, 2 1,000, right? So it's about 2 seconds in a golf swing, right? If you have good rhythm. And so in a skating jump, by the time you take off to the landing, if it's gigantic, it's 0.7 seconds.
The 3.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're not.
So you're going from 0 to 3 revolutions to 0 in 0.6 usually seconds. Okay. So how many things can you think about in 0.6 seconds? Nothing.
Well, it's a good analogy. Like
it's
a golf
repetition,
swing.
repetition. It's timing. It's repetition. It's repetition. More repetition, timing, and getting into a rhythm and a consistency that allows you to kind of rise above any negative thoughts that you might have.
Because it looks impossible. Like it
is impossible, but then you have to make it look easy. And then once you make it look easy, nobody really thinks that it's hard anymore. They just think it's skating. It's like,
and then they're like, hey, we're going to do 4.
Well, Nathan Chen, I mean, does
somebody do 4 spins now?
No, he did like 6 in a program, 4 quads. He did 6 quads in a program.
And that's like a quadruple actual.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's insane. That's freaking mutant stuff, right?
Yeah.
So, so Nathan was like, he was so far ahead of everyone. And it was great to see him do as well as he did.
Are you still commentating? Are you commentating?
Yeah, it's, it's
Why
funny.
do we have you back commentating? You're the best commentator on NBC.
I think it was a lot of things. I think, when Johnny and Tara came in and Sochi, they turned a lot of heads. And I think that the network just thought, fresh faces, fresh approach, fresh look, fresh. And they're really very gifted in a lot of the social media aspects, which, it draws more focus. So,
because you don't have enough Insta chat followers, you're not allowed to be the commentator anymore.
No, I don't. I think it was just there was such a breath of fresh air that I just felt like the network just felt like it was time for a change. Okay. So I went into more of a pregame, postgame role.
Oh, so you are doing something with the network?
So we did a thing in Pyeongchang and I actually did Beijing Olympics in my basement. Yeah. They set up a room in my basement.
You zoomed. Well, that was still in the middle of COVID, wasn't it?
Yeah. So like nobody really, except for the interviewers, went to Beijing. Everybody was in Stamford, Connecticut.
Yeah.
But I stayed home and I did it in my basement, and they set up. It was really cool because I had enough internet capacity for them to put a remote control camera and lighting in my basement, and they did like a backdrop.
Yeah.
Which was matched the studio that they were doing the stroke Olympic ice in.
So it looked like you were there.
Yeah. So it felt like I was there, and it matched enough where I was able to. I would get up. I would go grab a cup of coffee. I'd go down into my little basement studio. It was like an empty bedroom. And I would do the rehearsal and walk through the elements of the show. I'd go back up, make breakfast for my kids. They'd go to school. I'd go back down, do the Olympics. And then I'd come back upstairs. I'd make myself breakfast. And then go back down. We have a meeting for the next day. And that was how I did the Olympics. It was so easy. I felt guilty.
It was
like...
It was only 2 weeks, so right? Or was it? Yeah,
16 days. But do you realize, and here's the crazy thing, they still haven't had an award ceremony for the first event held at the Beijing Olympics.
Why not?
Because Kamila Valieva failed a drug test, and they can't make up their minds on what they're going to do. So the current leadership at the IOC broke the Olympic charter by not making a decision and having because they couldn't decide what to do. Because
so it's still in limbo?
It's still in limbo.
Why wouldn't...
What they did, in order to prevent that from happening again, you're not allowed to go to the Olympics unless you're 17 years old by such and such a date.
Okay.
And that gave WADA, the World Anti-Doping Association, jurisdiction over every athlete. Right now, because she was so young.
Yeah, how old was she?
She was 15 when she did the doping test, but she was 16 at the Olympics.
Okay.
So they said they didn't have jurisdiction. But still, it's like it's their event. It's like, well, no, we have to keep the Olympics clean.
Yeah.
So if someone, regardless of their age, fails a drug test, then they need to sit down and take a break. And if they participate having failed a drug test, then I do think that those results should be thrown out.
Yeah.
That would give the United States an Olympic gold medal in the team competition. I'm not being a homer. I'm just saying it's the right thing to do.
Yeah. It's okay to be a homer.
Usually I am.
The other thing about it is that we sometimes forget, because we think about sports in America as, it's the most popular sport is NFL. It's, Texas versus, Philadelphia or whatever it may be, Miami versus the Eagles. But the thing is about golf and about figure skating and a lot of the Olympic sports, snowboarding, it's you against the entire world. So you're not just competing in the United States. You're competing against the best people in every single country around the world, which I always get reminded of when I start talking about the Olympics. But after all of this, though, you're like, it wasn't as though you went to the Olympics, got a gold medal, and then everything was awesome.
No.
So you faced I know you've given. I remember hearing you say you gave away a medal, or
I got rid of my gold medal because it just was, it just sort of offended me, and it was really wild.
Why did it offend you?
Well, now I understand because I came to faith that it could become an idol, and but it was in that it was like I saw so many guys get stuck, like that's it. And it was so ironic that
so many Olympic athletes.
Yeah, they get stuck in that moment so much that that's their entire identity.
And it's hard to go beyond. I mean,
they can't. They're stuck, right? And a lot of people get stuck in that. And I'm not judging them. I didn't want that to be my journey because I still wanted to be an ice show comedian. Yeah, right.
Still wanted to. Yeah.
So after that season, I joined the Ice Capades.
Yeah.
Right. And they, the president of Ice Capades is somebody I truly respect and admire. We actually became really close friends. But when I signed, he said, we had to sign you because we didn't want you to go to our competition, but I know how it's going to go. You're going to party. You're going to think the work is done.
Oh, because it's so easy.
You're going to miss shows. Yeah. I go, no. I actually want to build a career. So I'm going to be the best employee you've ever had. So for the next 2 years, I never missed a show. Never missed a press call. I was a model employee. I signed a limited contract, so I wasn't doing 33 weeks. I was doing 20, but I'd end up doing 23 each year because there were other athletes that got hurt or got sick, and I would step in for them. So I was beyond what I promised them I would do. I went above and beyond that. So after 2 years, I had a third-year option, and the president of the company was there at the event on my last night of my second year, and I was like, here comes my third-year option. It's going to be awesome. And at the end of the show, he came up and he said, you did it. You did everything you said you were going to do. You were probably easily one of the most reliable, and you skate at the top of your game, and congratulations. And I said, thanks. And then he put his arm around me. He started to walk. I go, oh, no.
Uh-oh.
I go, so, we went through a sale. I go, I can't wait to meet the new owner. And he said, well, he doesn't want to meet you. I said, why? And he said, because they only want women stars. So after 2 years of performing perfectly, I lose my job. And in that, I had to figure out what was next. And I got, my management was IMG, and they came and they said, look, we'd love you to help us put a tour together. And I said, let me check my calendar.
It's kind of open.
Yeah, a little bit open. So we built a show called Stars on Ice. And
you started that.
I founded it.
You founded it with IMG.
Yeah. And so that's still going. Ice Capade's not so much. They needed more men to sell tickets, passive aggression. But it's that, right? So I was given this incredible career, and it was I thought if I skated 4 years that I was fooling a lot of people. And now I'm in year 13 of my professional
Still doing
career.
it, yeah.
And I couldn't stand up straight anymore. And that's after 50 cities of pain, I went into an emergency room just to say, I think I've got an ulcer. Just give me some medicine. I got a show tonight. I got to get back to work. And the doctor said, we found a mass. And I was like, what? I don't know what that is. And he said, it's either benign, malignant, or something else. It was like 2 months shy of the 20th anniversary of losing my mom. And I realized I'm being diagnosed with the same disease. And so...
The same cancer that your mom had?
No, she had breast cancer. I didn't know what I had. It was my abdomen. So I did the show that night. The next day I went to the Cleveland Clinic, and they did a biopsy, and they found that I had stage 3 testicular cancer. So I had to stop skating. I had to go right into chemotherapy. And then I did that for 4 months. And then I did a 38 staple surgery. And they removed the offending soldier. And then it was sort of back to life.
Yeah.
So I was back on tour the next year.
So but it took a year to recover.
No, I didn't give myself a year to recover. So I was diagnosed on March 16th, 1997. At the end of November 1997, we did our first show of Stars on Ice.
So it wasn't even a year.
No, my first show back was October 29th. We did a Back on the Ice special with CBS, and
So that's after surgery, after
everything.
radiation.
I had no business doing any of this stuff, but I did it because that was my carrot. Is I wanted to get my life back. I wanted to get back on tour. I had to get my life back. And so all of that attention that I was getting as a cancer patient and survivor spilled over into that touring season. And it was really unbelievable, the crowds that showed up and the compassion that people had towards me and for everything that I endured.
Knowing what you had gone through.
And so I was just back on the road but my life was different. I just...
And had you started a family at that point?
No.
So you were
I was in a relationship, and I just realized that there's something about this that just wrecked me, that just broke me. And my mom didn't have a second chance, and I did. Mm-hmm. So what am I going to do with my second chance? And I needed to work it out. So I stepped away from my life. I just got my car and I started to drive, and I ended up in LA. And I realized when I got there that it's a really great place to be alone.
L.A.?
No, it's fences and hedges and walls, and people basically live in their cars. It's a great place to kind of, if you want to be alone, you can be easily alone in LA. So I did that, and then I would go back to tour, and then I did that. And it was on 3 years to the day of my diagnosis that I met a girl backstage in Memphis who would become my wife. And 9 months and 2 days after we got married, my first son was born. And I did the math. And we're living life. And then he was about 14 months old, and I became symptomatic.
Did you recognize this, when you say symptomatic? Did you know?
Yeah, my energy. Oh man, I couldn't even get out of bed in the morning. Zapped, and then my peripheral vision started to change, where I couldn't. It was like my. And so I went in because I was preaching at that point, because I had all those years of advocacy for men's health, now with testicular cancer, that you need to, if there's something going on, you need to get to it right away. And so I had to practice what I preach. Yeah. And I went in, they did a head scan, and they found a brain tumor. And I was doing a show in Cleveland to raise money for cancer research.
How old were you at the time?
My goodness, I was 40. Oh, let me do the math real quick. I was 46. 46.
And so when they say you've got a brain tumor, do you immediately just think like that's it?
I think I'm going to die. So I had to tell my wife, and I have this 14-month-old son now, and she was arriving at the hotel as I got back from the doctor, and she said, "What's going on?" I go, "I'll tell you upstairs." And so we got up to the room, and my son we put the phone down on the floor, and he's like banging the cradle on the phone. He's playing with it. He's so cute at that age. They're just going. And she said, "What's going on?" I said, "I have a brain tumor." I didn't know how else to tell her. And she just grabbed both of my hands without skipping a beat, and she started to pray. And it was like, that's what that is. Power in the storm. Wow, it was the most powerful moment of my life. And I've had a lot of big moments, right? That was the biggest. And so she prayed and prayed and prayed. And then we just said, our mantra is, it is what it is, whatever it takes. So it is what it is, whatever it takes. And so a week later, they had to do a biopsy. And so they put a little hole in the top of my head, and they went down through, and they grabbed a piece of it. And a lot of bad things could happen in that surgery, a lot of bad things. Yeah. And they have to tell you, right? So I woke up.
They are messing with the computer.
Yeah, so yeah. I could wiggle my fingers and toes.
Do I see any?
Yeah, it's just a hole. It's
a little hole.
Yeah, it's right there.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah. So and they said I could lose speech. And I went, test. I go, okay, I can still speak. So I guess it worked. And then the doctor came in. He was happy. And my wife came in. We know what it is. And what is it? And they go, it's a craniopharyngioma. I go, like, I'm supposed to know what a craniopharyngioma is.
What the hell is
Here's
that?
Some information. So they gave my wife some information. Tracy's looking at it.
This is before WebMD. Yeah.
She said, oh my goodness, listen to this. Craniopharyngiomas are usually detected very early in a child's life due to a lack of growth and development.
So the tumor had something to do with you not growing as a kid.
The tumor was my childhood illness because I was born with it.
You were born. You had it all those years for 47 years.
Yeah,
you had that tumor. Yeah.
And for whatever reason, the years that I skated, it didn't do its mischief. But as soon as I stepped away to be a dad, it
started to grow.
It came right back. And so they did
How did they get rid of it?
gamma knife radiation. So they radiated my whole brain. And then I lost all kind of hormonal activity. So I'm on all these different pharmaceuticals, the replacement stuff, and I'm on that every day. And then I went back to life. And
so
then,
they were able to get it.
Well, they zapped it, they nuked it with radiation. So, it's a whole big process where they screw a halo to your head. And I kept telling them, go righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. Come on, guys, do this right.
Clockwise, counterclockwise.
It was a lot of pressure. And then they put this weird helmet on you, and then they shove you into a machine. And then it's 201 points of low-dose radiation, all culminating on the tumor.
Yeah.
And so that was the best they had to offer. So I did that, and then the tumor went away. And then I decided, I guess 6 years later, that I wanted to get back into skating just to be the 10th anniversary of my big cancer benefit. So I started training again. I hadn't been on the ice for 5 years. So I started training again and trying to figure out how to do these jumps and how to get myself.
How did I
in
used
that
to
shape.
do this?
Yeah, exactly. And it was hard. So I did that, and it was about 3 weeks before the event. I'm in a cab with a buddy of mine, Bobby Goldwater, used to be an executive at Madison Square Garden. And he said, how's the training going? I go, pretty good. And he goes, how's the backflip? And it's like, 51, Bobby. Why would I do that? And he said, sorry. When was the last time you did a show without one? It was like, oh, snap. There's going to be expectation. So I called my trainer and I go, get me a gymnastics coach immediately. And so I went back to Nashville, started working with a gymnastics coach who was my age, who thought I was...
To try to reinstate. How old were you when you first did the backflip?
I was 26.
Okay.
And
then you got famous for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now it's, 25 years later, and I'm trying to figure out how to do it again. And so I was getting over on it, and I actually got it into the show, and I landed it, which was miraculous. And then it was right after that, I tore everything in my right shoulder, so I'm in physical therapy post-surgery for that, and the symptoms came back, and I was like, come on!
And you could tell it was the same cancer or the same brain tumor.
I knew it. So I went in, and they said, yeah, it's back, but now it's presenting itself really well for surgery. So you can't have the radiation again because it'll destroy your optic nerves. It's bad. So no more radiation for you. I said, okay. So they went up through my nose, and they nicked an artery on the way in, which can happen in a certain, depending on patient, it's like single-digit percentage chance of that happening.
But of course, they nicked you.
Yeah. So that one surgery became 9 more. And
9?
So all that work I did to build up all of that
Backflip.
to get back into shape and everything put me into a position to be able to endure what I was about to go through those 9 surgeries. So at the end of the 9 surgeries, I went blind in my right eye. I got some of it, I might say most of it back. And, but it's blurry kind of around the ends and tops. And then I went back to life and, not skating anymore.
So that was your, how many different cancer diagnoses and tumors did you have?
I had testicular cancer in 97, brain tumor 2004, brain tumor 2010. And then we get to 2016 and it's back again. And this time I'm thinking, I've got options. So I can do the surgical option again. I could do a medical option now. There's this targeted therapy. Or everything in my spirit said, just get strong. Just get strong. Don't worry about this thing.
Because you've been through this so many times.
Yeah. And again, the first time it was faith. The second time it was dread fear. It was just like getting kicked in the stomach. This time it was like, don't worry about this thing. Just get strong. And so I just decided to get strong physically, emotionally, intellectually, and spiritually. And in that, I go back for my scan, and they go, didn't grow. It's like, great. I go back for a scan 3 months later. It shrunk half. I go, okay, we're on to something here. And so now it's like everything I do, if I'm aspirationally, there has to be a physical, intellectual, emotional, and spiritual component to it. Otherwise, it's like sitting on a chair with 3 legs. It doesn't work. So everything in my life is powered by all of that.
So did that eventually then go away?
I haven't looked at it for, COVID, access to hospitals. It got weird.
Yeah, it did.
And I realized that if it was shrinking and growing and shrinking and growing, shrinking, I'm not even gonna acknowledge this thing unless I become symptomatic again.
And you've been okay for how many years?
7.
You know,
so it's like that. It's like 2004 to 2010 to 2016. Pattern has emerged. I don't like this pattern at all. But I just decided the last one, I go, no. I'm the dog. This is the tail, right? I'm not letting the tail wag the dog anymore. I'm going to live my life fully, completely.
No matter how much.
And if I need to deal with it, I will. I'm not stupid. But at the same time, I'm not going to allow it to rule and ruin my everyday.
You know, I looked up last night how many people have lived in the world over the course of history, like 50,000 years or something.
It's like 100 billion. Something
Yeah,
like
it's like a little over 100 billion. Mm-hmm. And I think at some point you said that all 100 billion people have suffered at some point, right? Yeah. Yet we live in America, and we're always avoiding pain and avoiding suffering.
Good luck with that.
Right?
Yeah.
But we all go through it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you've learned to, I mean, do you fear death at this point?
Not anymore.
Not at all.
No. I've walked out of neuro ICU 3 times, maybe 4. And in that, it sort of, you get to a point where I really feel like I'm playing with house money right now. So it's like, it could have ended in 97. It could have ended in 2004. It could have ended in 2010. All of it could have ended. 2010 was really close. But when you get to, get through all that, and you realize that our bodies are susceptible, fragile, vulnerable to countless things, equally resilient, ultimately temporary.
Fragile, resilient, temporary.
Yeah.
What about just going through? So you've had so many of these really scary periods of time, and I would think did you just have no anxiety?
Oh no,
naturally, or do you get
scared out of my mind?
You're like a normal person that gets scared.
Yeah, of course. When I got down for the testicular cancer surgery, because I knew it was like 38 staples and then some, I was scared out of my mind, and my doctor, I actually was texting with him the other day. He just goes, "What's wrong with you?" And I go, "I'm scared." Yeah. And he goes, "Why?" And I go, "Have you ever done this before?" He goes, "I've done 7 this month." And I was like, "Oh, okay, we're good. Let's go." So it's like for anybody going through a health crisis, there are really talented doctors out there that do really wonderful things. And then there are guys that do 6 a day. Mm-hmm. All you really want is a 6 a day guy. Yeah. It's just, you don't really, and I don't believe in second opinions. Mm-hmm. I believe in 7th opinions. Mm. So where
you just keep shopping.
Just keep going around and understanding, because with cancer, and, I do a lot of work in cancer, there's different modalities of treatment. Yeah. And where you stand depends on where you sit. That's a Murphy's Law, by the way. Where you stand on something definitely depends on where you sit, And if you're sitting across from a surgeon, you're probably going to get cut. That's his passion. That's his training. He wants to help you. Yeah. Radiation oncologist, you're probably going to get radiated.
Hey, barber, do I need a haircut?
Yeah. It's like that, right?
Yeah.
But it's also...
of course you need surgery.
Of course you need. But it's also, if you're sitting across from a hemonc, you're probably going to try to find a way to put you on chemo. Yeah. So in everything, there are solutions. And even on the radiation side, my foundation offices are in a proton therapy center.
Proton?
There's only 43 of them in the United States. But it's a particle beam. It's not an X-ray or photon beam. So traditional radiation goes through the tissue. Right?
Gets everything.
And it runs out of energy at some point. Yeah. Right? So it's released its energy on the cancer. Great. But then there's collateral damage. Mm-hmm. With proton therapy, it's a particle. So it's the difference between a grenade and a sniper. Mm-hmm. So they can put that wherever they... And so in that, we see the advancement of cancer treatment options. Instead of getting gamma knife radiation, if I would have had access to proton therapy, it would have been much less destructive.
To the surrounding tissue.
Yeah, because my whole brain got exposed to radiation.
Has proton therapy gotten better?
Yeah, it's great.
It
was invented in the 60s. It was commercialized in the 80s. FDA approved in the 80s. And they just keep getting it more dialed in and more. It's gotten smaller, better, cheaper, and it's an elegant option for people dealing with hard tumors.
For people that get a diagnosis and they get a cancer diagnosis, or they get anything medical that we everybody at some point has a big issue. What do you tell somebody in their 50s or their 60s when they're supposed to have lots of time and lots of fun living in life ahead? What do you tell them to get through adversity?
Take a breath. Take a breath. Allow the fear to do its work.
What do you mean by that?
Well, there's a quote that says, courage is fear that said its prayers. And I 100% believe that. Any time you're broadsided, because in general, bad things only happen to other people, right? But when they happen to us, we're not prepared for it, right? So take a breath. All right, now, okay, surround yourself with the people that you want to be to get you through this, and let's start wearing out opinions. Let's start finding as many opinions as we can. Who's the best at this particular situation? The best of the best. I want access. I want an opinion. I want access to that person, and you leverage, and you get to work because it's your life and it's your longevity. And there's only so many sands in an hourglass, right? And we want to make sure we have as much sand in there as we possibly can put in there. And if we can add some sand, let's do that, right? So, when I said, we're fragile, resilient, temporary, I meant it. It's like, our dash is the most important thing, and we got to, if we can just keep pushing and live healthier and eat healthier and move and exercise and just take responsibility for our longevity, it changes everything.
How would you if you were on a dating app, how would you describe yourself?
Here we go. Yeah, a friend of mine
Let's
came
just
up.
say you were single.
Let's say I was single. All right.
You're 50, you're rich.
Yeah, that's my favorite thing. I love this. My personal ad would read, short, bald, half-neutered, chemoed, radiated, surgically repaired, retired male figure skater of unknown ethnic origin seeks a beautiful, intelligent woman for long walks, laughter, and an interest in my hobby for collecting life-threatening illnesses.
I love how you punctuate figure skater. Male
figure skater, because it's kind of every woman's dream is to be with a male figure skater. It's kind
Did you consult on Blades of Glory?
I was in it.
No, that's right. You were in it.
Yeah, I loved it.
What do you think about that?
I loved it.
What was the move that almost killed? Was it the Iron Lotus?
The fabled Iron Lotus. It was just a myth. Nobody had ever seen one before. Well,
that's right. You were commentating about it.
Person getting their head cut off.
Right.
Yeah, it's like, I can't believe I'm seeing this with my own eyes. I think they're setting up the fabled Iron Lotus. And I had so much fun on that movie. My goodness, I just laughed, and just sitting with Will Ferrell at the
you get to hang out with Will Ferrell,
and just getting to know John Heater, who's brilliant, and spending time with the cast. It's like Amy Poehler.
Because you always want to be a comedian.
I show comedian.
And then meanwhile, you get into the funniest Will Ferrell movie,
ever.
One of the top 3 of all time.
Amy Poehler grew up in Burlington, Massachusetts, which is the home of Peter and Kitty Carruthers. And
wait, who's her skating partner? What's that actor's name?
Will Arnett.
Will Arnett.
They were married at the time.
Oh, I didn't.
They're not married anymore, but they were married at the time, and they're brilliant and they're funny, and it was just such a great environment to be in. And I'm always going to be grateful for that opportunity.
So it was it's just so much fun. How long did that? How long were you?
I was only on set for 2 days.
But you got to hang out with Will Ferrell.
I got to watch, and I got to go in and watch him shoot some things. And then when I was living in LA, one of the guys I played golf with a lot was Craig T. Nelson. And he played the coach.
Oh, he was the coach.
Yeah.
Oh, God, he's so good.
So we were playing golf
He is coach.
Yeah, he is coach. So we were playing golf one day, and it's like, I hang out with celebrities and movie stars all the time. Not so much. But we were playing golf one day, and he goes, I just got a script for a skating movie. And it's like, oh. Yeah, he goes, I think you're a part of that? And I go, I am. And he goes, should I do it? And I go, absolutely. And he goes, he goes, I couldn't stop laughing reading the script last night.
It was just so funny, Blades of Glory.
But it was all, we were doing our shtick, it was an empty arena. We're in the Los Angeles sports arena, and it was empty except people messing around. And they were shooting our stuff in a commentary position way up high. And we do our takes and everything else. And then the director came up and they go, Scott, can you come with me? And I go, yeah, am I in trouble? Because I always think I'm in trouble. He goes, no, Will just wrote an interview sketch that he wants you to do down in the kiss and cry area. And it's like, cool.
Yeah.
So we did this thing. And every time we did a take, he'd do it differently.
Okay. Because he was just...
Every time he'd do it differently. And they had...
So you were interviewing him.
I interviewed him, Chaz, and Jimmy.
Chaz Michelson.
Yeah. And he goes, we're taking this, skating train straight to, and it was like, and then a woman came by with a bottle of champagne, like that's ever in Kiss and Cry, never. And she comes by with a bottle of champagne, and he takes the bottle and he smacks her on the rear end, and he starts chugging it. So I started talking to Jimmy, and he goes, we just tried to remain focused. And he gave like the figure skating interview.
Played the straight man.
Will Ferrell, not so much.
Straight guy,
He was the kind of the straight guy, but he was so much fun, and it was just a great experience.
Tell our audience your quote or your philosophy around attitude.
Well, I mean, the only true disability in life is a bad attitude. I've seen too much. I've experienced too much. And
the only true disability.
The only true disability in life is a bad attitude. I recently met this wonderful guy, Daniel Ritchie, and he was born without arms. So he had to grow up and learn how to do everything without arms. And I love this man. We became such good friends, and oh my goodness, he's just so inspiring, and he's a true testament to that. He got teased and bullied, and he just didn't like his life. And then he understood that he was perfectly and wonderfully made, right? So in that perfectly and wonderfully made, his parents never let him say the word can't or shouldn't or don't. He go, Dan, I need you to go out and mow the lawn. And he goes, huh? Work it out. So he did. And we just became dear friends. And I look at him and I thought, if anybody had permission to roll up their tent and it was him.
It's not fair.
And
it's not fair.
He's got a beautiful family, and he's very self-sufficient. And we had breakfast together recently, and he does everything with his feet. And I hope everyone in the world has access to this guy at some point, because he's absolutely joyful and just positive and amazing. And he's able to rise above whatever his limitations are.
Yeah.
He just does that because that's what we do. Right. And so I get so jazzed when I meet people that have overcome. The guy, Kyle Maynard, climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. A lot of people have done that. How many people have done it without arms or legs?
He did it without arms or legs?
Yeah.
I don't know.
So I hear about people like this all the time. And I'm just so inspired. And I'm so, I think, like when I went in to speak after Sarajevo, I meet with the mayor. He says, the governor, and he says, be careful of the hometown hero syndrome. And I said, what's that? And he goes, the high school quarterback throws the bomb at the end of the game, wins the state championship. He's carried off the field on everybody's shoulders, and he expects the rest of his life to be that way.
Don't.
And I was like, he goes, enjoy the fruits of your labor, but be prepared. Your life is going to change. And I want you to be ready for that. And I was like, thank you. The next thing I did was I went to the Paralympic banquet.
And spoke.
And I walk into this thing, the Olympic gold medalist. From the United States of America.
Yeah.
And I see everybody there wearing the same medal I won, except they didn't have arms or legs or sight. And I'm like, I'm nothing. They're the heroes. They rose above something, and I'm able-bodied. It's almost not fair. Yeah. But they're the heroes. And I think that's why my medal lived in a brown paper bag in my underwear drawer for 8 years before I could finally get rid of it.
And you gave it to the Olympic Museum?
I gave it to the U.S. Figure Skating Hall of Fame Museum.
What do you, as we think about, you've got, your career has been interesting, to say the least, as an athlete and then an entrepreneur, because the Stars on Ice. Mm-hmm. And then now I know you're speaking and you have a podcast now. What are you doing now? Are you kind of semi-retired?
No, I'm busier than I've ever been. My wife the other day put me aside and goes, are you crazy? I go, yeah, I think I'm crazy. It's nuts. It's like I have a cancer foundation. Like I didn't choose cancer. It chose me, right? So, and it's all, everything I've learned is in the response. How do we respond to things? And
how do we respond?
And so in that, it's like, if I can change the way cancer is treated forever, then I'll know why I was born, right? My mom never had a chance. Never had a chance. And they filled her full of everything they could think of for 2 years, and she suffered and she died. But 20 years later, I'm diagnosed, and 2 guys in Indiana figured it out. So I have a cancer foundation called Scott Hamilton Cares Foundation. It's the Cares,
Scott Hamilton Cares.
Scott Hamilton Cares Foundation. It's scottcares.org if anybody wants to check it out. But the CARES stands for the Cancer Alliance for Research, Education, Survivorship. And I did a ton of really cool things with the Cleveland Clinic, and then I launched as an independent foundation. And now all we do is we fund immunotherapy research. There's, our bodies created the cancer. Why can't we teach our bodies how to destroy it?
Where are we in that?
Really close.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we put our stake in the ground there 9 years ago, and then 2 years after that, CAR T came out, which is a T-cell therapy for lymphoma. And using that platform, they feel like they're going to be able to cure a lot of different cancers. So
over the next 5 years.
Yeah, we did the thing at Children's National Hospital in Washington where we funded initially 100% of their immunotherapy, and now they have a lot of funding coming in for immunotherapy. And we were talking to their head of research, and he goes, "So how long have you been doing this?" And I told him, he goes, "How did you know?"
How did you know?
That immunotherapy was the next. And I just said, "I'm smart."
I'm smart.
No, I pay attention. I could see where things were going, and I was meeting research scientists that had been working on this for a long time, and to me, it just felt logical.
So for you, because this is Scott Hamilton Cares is a calling of your faith in your life, so you will do that forever. So there's no real retirement for you.
Well, I mean,
or do you ever think of that word?
Figure out cancer.
Do you think about the word of not working, or you may just work until you can't work anymore?
I don't know. I think a lot of it will depend on family.
Because you've got, I want to hear about your kids too. You've got one MMA fighter.
Yeah. 22-year-old son. Let me see if I got a picture right here. I could show you.
22-year-old son.
This is us. So
this is the Hamilton family.
Yeah. So right there is Jean Paul.
Yeah.
He's 22 now. That's
clearly a biological son of yours.
Very, very close. Yeah, I can't deny him. That's Aiden. He's my first born. And then there's Eveline, my daughter, who's now 20. And then that's Max right there. He's now 15.
He's the one. He has a podcast now,
yeah,
right?
he's on fire right now. But they're all busy. Eveline's she's studying political science. I think she wants to go back to Haiti and fix it. Jean-Paul is in the workplace, and he really loves music. My son Aiden is training MMA. He wants to be an MMA fighter. Yeah. And then Max is going to probably end up being in some form of ministry because he just loves the Lord. And man, he's on fire right now.
He's only 15.
He's 15.
But he's speaking. He's preaching.
But he's all over the place. He's doing a youth camp next weekend where he's doing 3 different sermons for kids his age.
What about his podcast, the name?
Oh, it's called The Social Trap. He realized a lot of people are getting stuck in social media, getting stuck in kind of like life comparisons. Am I doing okay? Yeah. How do I fit in? How am I doing compared to the Kardashians?
A world of FOMO. A world of FOMO.
What's FOMO? And it's just all artificial. Yeah. Nothing's real anymore. And so these kids are suffering. When you look at suicide rates now, it's awful. I mean, it's just...
It keeps getting worse.
And hopelessness, and it's all because we're all comparing ourselves and you look at sort of where our culture is today and where we are, politically divided. For what? I mean, we're all human beings. We all love each other. If we could just get to a point of just stepping away from being labeled and just getting into the fact that we're human beings. It's like when the earthquake happened in Haiti, they say estimated 250,000 people died in 30 minutes. Think of that. That's unthinkable. My wife had to get there. Yeah. That's what we're designed to be. Compassionate, sacrificial human beings. And if we could all just do that, my goodness, the world would change in a second.
It would.
And it's with all these, so, like, I got a question. It was actually on social media. I went on every now and then when I'm bored, I'll go on Twitter and I'll look around and I go, if you could change the world in one way, what would you do?
What would you do?
Eliminate social media.
Yeah.
Done.
Amen to that. And you can follow the Retire Sooner podcast at retiresoonerteam.com.
No, but podcasts, it's different than you getting into all that stuff.
It's not social media.
And it's all that, when you look at like the social dilemma and all the algorithms, and if you want a little of this, we'll give you a lot more.
Yeah.
And in that, it puts more fuel on the fire of whatever you're searching or whatever you're passionate about. It'll just keep throwing it at you to the point where that becomes your existence. And in that, it's like, okay, come on, people, we're human beings. And I just think, again, I lost my mom to cancer. I survived. What do? I really want to make sure everyone survives cancer.
From cancer.
Right? I got a skating academy. I do it as a volunteer. Why do I do that? Because skating gave me an identity. It gave me a life. I want to give back. I want other people to experience the same joys I did. And then, with family and with speaking, it's like sharing experiences allow people to offer, it gives them perspective.
Yeah.
So yeah, you referred to, I think it was the TED Talk I did on suffering. I went on TED. Has anyone ever talked about suffering? Because I don't want to be accused of plagiarizing. There's not one talk on suffering. The one thing we all experience.
We all experience it.
You're all wimps.
Yeah.
Come on. We have to address these things.
Mm-hmm.
And how do we do it? We try to empower people to rise above their circumstance, or at least, with people that I know are facing terminal cancer. It's like, what do I do? It's like, Libby, every breath, just you pour into your family, and whatever time you have left, you use it to do exactly what you want to do.
When you last question, as we wrap, because we got to run.
We've been talking a long time.
When you speak to audiences as a speaker, what is your message that you want them to take away? What do you like to speak about most?
It's basically I've fallen on the ice 41,600 times minimum.
Is that a real number?
I kind of went through.
Okay.
Yeah, at minimum.
It's a good estimate.
It's a good estimate.
41,600.
41,600 times. Cool thing is, I got up 41,600 times.
Yeah.
And when you get up 41,600 times, that fall takes on a different identity. And I just really want everybody to understand that we all go through things in our lives that are hard, difficult, impossible to rise above. But it's that getting up, It's the getting up that allows us to live our days, how many days we have, to live them, joyfully, productively, abundantly, and in community with other people. And it's the getting up. I mean, and if you get up enough times, and if you get up enough times in impactful ways, I think people see that and they go, I can do that.
You can, they can.
I can totally do that. So, one of the first things we did with CARES was we set up a mentorship program for newly diagnosed patients. We put them with survivors to work as role models and life coaches, not medical stuff. It's just purely on, I did it, so can you.
Yeah.
And, that's kind of the message is, I got to experience a lot of really cool things, and I got to experience some really not cool things. And to this day, I'm dealing with a lot of the non-cool things as part of my day-to-day life.
Yeah.
I'm still here.
Yeah. And
I don't know if I can make a difference in someone else's life, or if I can, through my work in cancer, extend someone's life. If I would have had the same trajectory as my mom, I never would have become a husband or a father.
Mm-hmm. And now you have 4 kids.
I have 4 kids. And we'll see. Maybe I'll live long enough to have grandchildren. That's the greatest blessing of all.
God bless. Scott Hamilton.
Thank you.
Thank you, man.
That was fun.
Very fun.